It's very unique to each of us. But my simple definition of success is when you know what you want from life and you're actively pursuing it. Let me say this again. When you know what you want from life and you're actively pursuing it. Let me unpack the first part of this definition a little bit. How do you even figure out what you want from life? It was Josh Billings who said, it is not only the most difficult thing to know oneself, but the most inconvenient one too. Your definition of success needs to start with a deep understanding of who you are, what your anchor in life is, what are you willing to sacrifice and for what? And as you think about this, I would urge you to ask three questions to yourself. Number one, what are the skills and capabilities that you bring to life? What is the value that you bring to the world? And not just today, what could it be? It's not possible for the world to hold a meeting and decide your value. That decision is yours. You have to start there. Number two, what does your peak look like? Leave lots of room for improvisation because we will learn, we will pivot, we will change, we'll all wander through lives. But having some sense of a North Star will give you direction. And number three, what is the unique outcome that makes most sense for you in your life? Decide your matrix very, very carefully and don't just live on borrowed or social goals. It may very well change with the phase you're in life and as you evolve in life, but you have to be conscious and specific about it. Otherwise, you're trying to do everything for everybody, including yourself. And in most cases, that leads to disappointment. I've seen many people in life, many people in life who've lived their lives climbing the ladder of success. And once they've reached the top, only to find that the ladder is leaning towards the wrong wall. Or in the case of this picture, not leaning anywhere at all. Don't be that person. So once you have a sense of what success really means for you and what your authentic and unique outcomes are and what your metrics are, how do you make it happen? Is there really a formula for success? And in full disclosure, this formula that I'm going to give you is my nerdy take at what it takes to be successful in life. I don't recommend this is the only way to do it, but this seems to work for me and I want to share it with all of you. Success equals a growth mindset, purposeful engagement in learning, the depth and breadth of your relationships, constantly simplifying your life through principles and habits, and having the courage to keep showing up even when it hurts. All of this raised to the power of luck. Now, let me unpack each of these 5 elements for you. Growth mindset. It starts with a growth mindset. And the fundamental premise of the growth mindset is that nothing is fixed. Nothing is carved in stone. Who you are, your intelligence, your learning capacity, your identity, your emotions, all of these can be and need to be worked on all the time. So be careful of the identity that you're developing and the stories that you tell yourself about what you're capable of. The key here is the desire to evolve and to get better every day. This desire is probably humanity's most pervasive driving force, but at times we do completely forget it. And you have to constantly remind yourself. Life is growth. And ongoing success can be as meaningless as ongoing lack of success if you're not constantly striving and struggling for some goal worthy of you and stretching yourself every day. Purposeful engagement in learning. Now, you might argue that you know everything that is there to know about learning, but my submission today is that learning is really misunderstood. The illusion of competence in learning is more common than you and I think. I'm going to give you my 3 ingredients for real learning that work for me. The first ingredient is focus. In a world full of distractions, focus and purposeful engagement is must for any kind of learning. The question I ask myself every day is that, am I getting better at my craft? Am I really getting better at my craft? And this really helps me be a lot more purposeful, a lot more precise, and focused on what my learning needs are. Focus is important because we only see what we aim at. And the rest of the world, which is pretty much most of it, is hidden. Be careful what you're really aiming at because that's all you're seeing. Number 2, a learning loop. And this is where deliberate practice really comes in. Learning is not about an odd book here and there. Learning typically starts with an experience. And by the way, the more dramatic, the more diverse the experience it is, the better it is. You then move on to reflection. This is when you step back and think about what you've learned. And you need to make the time and space for it. Next comes abstraction, which is your ability to synthesize and get to the real lesson or the so what. This is when you move in your mind from hacks and simple ideas to principles and mental models. And then the fourth is action, when you really test your learning. And unless you constantly test and iterate on your thinking and your learning, you're not really learning. The third ingredient for learning is zero intellectual insecurity. Zero intellectual insecurity. This is the toughest one. The difference between sounding smart and being smart is I don't know. Some of the sharpest people I've known and I've worked with use this phrase, I don't know, all the time. And that shows humility and that shows zero intellectual insecurity. Remember, it is impossible to get better and look better at the same time. A mountaineer friend once told me, are you climbing the mountain to see the world or for the world to see you? Relationships. Let me tell you another story, and this is a personal story. One of my mentors many, many years back asked me to write down the list of 10 relationships, the 10 people that matter most to me. And the exact phrase my mentor used at that time was, who would you call, Puneet, when you're in real trouble? Real trouble. Write down those 10 names. So I took a piece of paper and I wrote down the 10 names. That was easy. He then asked me to say, listen, draw 2 columns against those 10 names and write 2 things against each of them. Number 1, when was the last time you meaningfully engaged with them? Number 2, how are you adding value to their lives? Number 1, when was the last time you purposefully and meaningfully engaged with them? And number 2, how are you adding value to their lives? Believe me, this was a classic looking at the mirror exercise. And I did not like what I saw. Out of the 10 in my list, there were only 3 that I was really engaged with. And for one of them, I was consciously and proactively adding value. The irony here is these were the people, the 10 people who mattered most to me. And I would urge all of you to do this exercise. It's a great barometer for the depth of your relationships and where you really need to invest. The other thing that really matters about relationships is the breadth of your relationships. It's not just the numbers, right? It's the diversity of your relationships. Are you able to step out of your echo chamber, right? And are you able to have conversations with people who have a fundamentally different view of life? People who will challenge you, people who will point out the blind spots. As Scott Fitzgerald said, the test of intelligence is the ability to hold 2 opposing ideas in your mind at the same time and still remain the ability to function. It's really important to step out of your echo chamber and have relationships and conversations and these interactions with people who are thinking about life very differently, because that's what makes you reflect and think. So have more serendipity in who you meet and who you build relationships with. You'll be surprised how spending time with people outside your echo chamber will stretch and stimulate your thinking. Simplifying life. Now, before I get to the how and simplification of life, let me explain the why. Why do you even need to simplify your life? Why does it matter? Our brains have severe limitations. And most of the time, we don't even realize these limitations. Our brains also indulge in this desire of ours to see the world as black and white. And we excel at telling ourselves the narrative of being in control, because quite honestly, not being in control is uncomfortable. As kids, we loved hearing stories. As adults, we loved believing in them. No surprises, I started this talk today with a story. Also, given how life is becoming more and more interesting and dynamic every day, some would argue it's getting more and more complex every day, you need to be able to focus your energy and mental space on things that truly matter. Are you going to use your mind to think, or are you going to use that as a warehouse of facts? That's a call you have to take. Now let's talk about the how of simplifying your life. And to me, the toolkit has 2 parts. It starts with principles. Principles are macro level beliefs that guide hundreds of decisions for you. They allow you to live your life according to your values, literally based on what you value in life. They're not a roadmap or a plan or a checklist, but they're almost like a personal constitution or a compass. I'll give you a couple of examples to bring this to life. One of my personal principles is frugality, but not on experiences. Frugality, but not on experiences. In other words, I value and spend on experiences over possessions. Now, this has dramatically simplified the decisions I take when it comes to thinking about buying the next new shiny object. It could be the next car, it could be the next gadget. And it really simplifies my thinking because my principle is clear and this is what my value is. At work, one of my work principles is believe in myself, but remember it is not about you. And this is really helpful for me in 2 ways. Number one, it allows me, in fact, it pushes me to trust my gut, not second guess the decisions I take, not be tentative, feel entitled to the time and space I have. But at the same time, as I continuously remind myself, it is not about me. And I don't need to take things personally. It's a big burden off my shoulders. So frame your own principles. And again, you can frame them for your work, your personal life. They will evolve over time. It's an iteration, it's a journey. But please pay attention to the things and the decisions in life that make you most uncomfortable. That's where your principles will emerge from. Don't just lift and shift somebody else's principles. You can borrow ideas, but you cannot borrow conviction. This has to come from within. The other toolkit, the other part of the toolkit of simplifying life is habits. And one thing I've learned in 20 years of working is there are no defining moments or blinding insights that will transform me. What will make me better is small, consistent improvements on a daily basis. So be conscious about your daily habits. Are they taking you in the direction of the person you want to be? Just show up. This is the discipline of not selling yourself short and not giving up even if it hurts. And even when giving up seems easy and the convenient thing to do. We give up and fire ourselves even before somebody else can for several reasons. I'll give you a couple. Number one, we give up because we are our own worst critics. The greatest human weakness today is self-deprecation, selling ourselves short. The other reason we give up is we hate operating in uncertainty. It is surprising, but you and I will choose unhappiness over uncertainty in several moments in life. We will choose unhappiness over uncertainty. That's how terrified we are of not knowing where we are going. One thing I'm trying to learn every day is the ability to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And this is a really, really important superpower for me. Successful people are just like the rest of us. The big difference is they keep showing up. In spite of the pain, the uncertainty, the fears, the self-talk, the self-deprecation, they keep showing up. They don't give up. And I would suggest two things to keep showing up in life and maintain forward momentum. Number one, it is really important to not believe everything you think. Don't believe everything you think. Who are you beyond the stories in your head? What are the 5 stories you've been telling yourself about yourself since your childhood? Write these down. Are these really true? Number 2, action cures fear. Next time you experience fear, steady yourself, isolate your fear, pin it down, and then take action. And finally, remember, it's not just enough to show up. You have to show up well. Being enthusiastic is worth 25 IQ points. It truly is. So life it up in everything you do. Your handshake, your smile, your talk, believe me, it will be noticed and will make a difference. And success truly can be a flywheel. As each of these 5 components I've spoken about, starting with a growth mindset, purposeful engagement in learning, relationships, both the depth and the breadth of it, simplifying your life constantly through principles and habits, and just showing up, even when it hurts. All of these 5 work as a virtuous cycle and help you build forward momentum. And as the flywheel spins up, you're increasing the opportunities in the surface area you have for 2 things, for learning, which is what you know, and relationships, which is who you know. Very early in my life, one of my mentors told me it is very difficult to fail in life if you do 2 things, only 2 things, constantly learn new things and build relationships. And this flywheel helps you do that. So that's my simple formula for success, and I call it the success flywheel. How can we forget luck? If you remember my formula, it was all of these 5 things raised to the power of luck. I do believe luck has a disproportionate impact on life, but your life is too important to be left to chance. There's a way you can work your way towards being luckier in life. And that's where the success flywheel comes in. It helps you continuously increase your luck surface area and be prepared to get lucky. If you're well prepared to be lucky, perhaps luck is more likely to find you. Let me tell you one last story. And this is about Joseph Heller, who's the author of the famous book Catch-22, which many of us have read. Joseph was at a party once. This was a party being hosted by a billionaire hedge fund manager. And somebody in the party caught Joseph and said to him, do you know the host of the party, which is a hedge fund manager, has made more money in a single day yesterday than you, Mr. Heller, have made with the earnings of your wildly popular book, Catch-22. Heller paused for a minute and responded. He said, yes, but I have something he will never have. Enough. I love this word, enough. Most of us will never feel successful enough or loved enough or rich enough or fit enough. You can pick your category. And the highs we have on this hedonic treadmill will only last a day or 2. It is always good to remind ourselves that life isn't fun without a sense of enough. Life isn't fun without a sense of enough. I've used metaphors of success and life being a ladder or a mountain, but life isn't a mountain which has a summit. It's not a game with a final score. Life is an endless process of self-discovery. You can't make joy and happiness a goal. It has to be a practice. It's a choice. It's a muscle that you develop and exercise every day. Going back to the elephant in the room, I'm sorry, not the elephant in the room, but the elephant in the camp, you have to think about this, right? You can't let your limiting beliefs hold you back from aiming high in life, growing every day. But at the same time, you can't let these beliefs, these limiting beliefs, hold you back from experiencing life. And life is to be found in the present moment, not in the future or the past. It was Ariana Huffington who said life is a dance between making it happen and letting it happen. And I hope, and I really hope, I made you think a little differently today about both these dances. I wish you all the best. May you have the courage to define what you really want from life, actively pursue it, and never stop growing. Thank you.